The silence in my apartment was so complete, I could hear the hum of the refrigerator 3 rooms away. I sat cross-legged on my worn couch, a mug of now cold hot chocolate balanced on my knee, staring at the tiny artificial tree I'd set up on the coffee table. Its plastic branches drooped under the weight of ornaments I'd collected over years of Christmases that felt progressively lonelier. Outside my window, snow fell in thick curtains over Brooklyn, muffling the city into something almost peaceful. It was Christmas Eve, nearly midnight, and I was exactly where I'd been for the past 3 years, completely, utterly alone. My phone sat face down on the cushion beside me, silent. I'd turned off notifications hours ago, unable to bear another cheerful family photo from college friends or another holiday, party selfie from coworkers who'd stopped inviting me after I'd declined too many times. It wasn't that I didn't want a connection. I craved it with an ache that lived permanently in my chest. But after my parents died in that car accident 5 years ago, after my only sibling moved to Singapore for work, after my last relationship imploded when he admitted he couldn't handle my grief, I'd learned that being alone hurt less than being disappointed by people who promised to stay. So I stayed home. I worked my data analysis job remotely, ordered groceries for delivery, and built a life so small and contained that nothing could touch me. Nothing could hurt me. It was safe. It was suffocating. It was all I had. I raised the mug to my lips, grimacing at the cold sweetness, when 3 sharp knocks echoed through my apartment. My heart stuttered. I wasn't expecting anyone. I never expected anyone. For a wild moment, I wondered if I'd imagined it, if loneliness had finally crossed the line into auditory hallucination. Then the knocking came again, more insistent this time, and unmistakably real. I set down the mug with shaking hands and crossed to the door, my bare feet silent on the hardwood. Through the peephole, I saw a man I didn't recognize, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing an expensive-looking black coat dusted with snow. His face was partially obscured by the angle, but I caught the sharp line of his jaw, the dark sweep of hair, and something about his posture that suggested coiled violence barely restrained. "Who is it?" I called through the door, my voice embarrassingly thin. "My name is Donato Testa." His voice was deep, accented, Italian, I thought, and carried the kind of authority that made you want to obey without understanding why. "I need to speak with you. It's about your neighbor, Mrs. Calabrese." Mrs. Calabrese, the older woman who lived 2 doors down, who always smiled at me in the hallway, who'd invited me to Christmas dinner 3 times and accepted my polite refusals with grace. Concern spiked through my caution. "What about her? Is she okay? Please, open the door." There was something in his tone, not quite pleading, but close. "I promise I mean you no harm, but we need to talk, and I'd rather not do it through 3 inches of wood." Every self-preservation instinct screamed at me to call 911, to leave the door locked, to pretend I'd never heard the knocking. But worry for Mrs. Calabrese overrode my fear. I undid the chain, twisted the deadbolt, and opened the door just wide enough to see him properly. He was devastating. That was my first coherent thought. Dark eyes that looked almost black in the hallway's dim lighting, sharp features that could have been carved from marble, and a presence that seemed to fill the entire corridor despite the fact that he stood perfectly still. He looked at me with an intensity that made my skin prickle, and I suddenly felt acutely aware of my flannel pajamas and messy bun. "Nadia Volkov?" he asked. The fact that he knew my name should have terrified me. Instead, I just felt tired. "Yes. What's wrong with Mrs. Calabrese?" "May I come in? What I need to discuss is sensitive." "Tell me about Mrs. Calabrese first." A slight smile curved his lips. Appreciation, maybe, for my stubbornness. "She's fine. Spending Christmas with her son in New Jersey. But she asked me to check on you. She was worried about you being alone." The kindness in that statement hit me harder than any threat could have. Mrs. Calabrese, who I'd rebuffed repeatedly, still thought about me, still worried. The unexpected gentleness of it made my throat tight. "I'm fine," I managed. "You didn't need to come all this way just to—" "I didn't come just for that." His expression shifted, something darker moving behind his eyes. "I came because I need your help, and because you're in danger, though you don't know it yet." The words hung in the cold hallway air between us. Behind him I could see snow falling past the hallway window, peaceful and oblivious to whatever threat he was implying. I should have slammed the door, should have called the police, should have done anything except what I did, which was step back and gesture him inside. 5 minutes, I said. Then you leave. 5 minutes. He stepped across my threshold, and I caught his scent. Something expensive and dark, like cedar and smoke. Thank you. I closed the door but didn't lock it. Keeping an escape route open felt important. Donato Testa stood in my small living room looking completely out of place, his expensive coat and obvious power a stark contrast to my second-hand furniture and bargain store decorations. He studied the space with the same intensity he'd studied me, and I got the uncomfortable feeling that he was cataloging everything, building a profile, assessing. You live alone, he said, not a question. Yes, what danger are you talking about? He turned those dark eyes back to me, and I saw something flicker across his face. Calculation, concern, or maybe just exhaustion. Up close, I noticed things I'd missed in the hallway. The faint scar along his left cheekbone, the silver threading through his dark hair at his temples, the way his hands stayed loose at his sides but ready, like a fighter between rounds. Do you know what I do for a living, Nadia? Should I? Most people in this neighborhood do. I run certain operations, businesses that exist in the spaces between legal and illegal. My family has controlled parts of Brooklyn for 3 generations. He said it calmly, matter-of-factly, like he was discussing the weather. The word people usually use is mafia, though I prefer to think of it as community protection. My mouth went dry. You're telling me you're a mobster. I'm telling you I'm a man with enemies. And one of those enemies has decided to target me by going after people in this building. Mrs. Calabresi is under my protection. Her late husband worked for my father. But you... He stepped closer, and I fought the urge to back away. You're vulnerable. You're alone. You're exactly the kind of person someone would use to send a message. I don't understand. I don't know you. I don't know anything about your world. Why would anyone target me? Because you live in this building. Because you're isolated. Because hurting innocent people is how men like my enemy operate. His jaw tightened. His name is Viktor Kozlov. He's been trying to take over my territory for the past 6 months. So far, I've blocked every move he's made. So he's changing tactics, going after civilians to make me look weak, to prove I can't protect my own neighborhood. I shook my head, trying to process. This is insane. This doesn't happen to people like me. It does, more often than you'd think. He reached into his coat, and I tensed, but he only pulled out his phone. He tapped the screen a few times, then held it out to me. This photo was taken 4 hours ago, outside this building. I looked at the screen. The image showed a black sedan parked across the street, and though the angle was wrong to see inside, something was menacing about the way it sat there. Engine running, exhaust visible in the cold. That car has been there since 8 p.m., Donato continued. 3 men inside. They're watching the building. Specifically, they're watching the apartments of people who live alone. You, the college student on the 4th floor, the divorced accountant on 3. He pocketed the phone. I have people watching them watching you, but that only works until they make a move. So call the police. The police can't help you. Not against Viktor Kozlov. He owns half the precinct. Donato's expression softened slightly. I know this is overwhelming. I know you have no reason to trust me. But Mrs. Calabresi trusts me, and she asked me to make sure you're safe, so I'm here to offer you a choice. What choice? You can stay here, alone, and hope that my people spot any threat before it reaches you. Or... He paused, weighing his words. You can come with me, tonight, to my home, where I can guarantee your safety until this situation is resolved. I laughed, a sharp, disbelieving sound. You want me to go home with a stranger who just admitted to being a criminal? That's your idea of safety? I want you to survive Christmas. Whatever you think of me, I keep my word. And I'm giving you my word that if you come with me, no one will touch you. You'll be a guest in my home, with your own room, your own space, complete autonomy. All I'm asking is that you let me keep you alive. For how long? A week, maybe 2, however long it takes to deal with Kozlov. He studied my face. I know what you're thinking, that I'm the bigger threat than some hypothetical danger, that you'd rather take your chances alone than trust the devil you just met. But Nadia... He said my name like he'd been saying it for years. I've been doing this a long time. I know what men like Kozlov do to send messages. I've seen the aftermath. I don't want to see that happen to you. There was something in his voice, genuine concern, maybe even fear, that cut through my skepticism. This wasn't a performance. He actually believed I was in danger. And more than that, he seemed to care about preventing it. Why? I whispered. Why do you care what happens to me? For a moment, his controlled expression cracked, and I saw something raw underneath. Because Mrs. Calabrese asked me to check on you. Because you're an innocent in a war you didn't ask for. And because... He stopped, seeming to struggle with words. Because I'm tired of seeing good people hurt by evil men. Sometimes you get to prevent the hurt before it happens. This is one of those times. I looked at my apartment, my safe, small, suffocating space. I looked at this stranger with danger in his eyes and honor in his voice. I thought about spending another Christmas alone, waiting for a threat I couldn't see to materialize at my door. And I thought about what my mother used to say before the accident. Sometimes the scariest choice is the right one. If I say yes, I said slowly, I need guarantees. I need to be able to leave if I want. I need to be able to contact people, to prove I'm okay. I need... Whatever you need, he interrupted. Write the list. I'll meet every condition. Your safety and comfort are non-negotiable. And you promise this is temporary? That as soon as the threat is gone, I can come home? You have my word. And if you want additional insurance, I'll put it in writing. Signed, witnessed, legally binding. He pulled out his phone again. I can have my lawyer here in 20 minutes. The absurdity of it, a mafia boss offering legal contracts to protect me from himself, almost made me laugh again. But there was nothing funny about the way he looked at me, or the sick feeling in my stomach when I glanced at the window and wondered if someone really was watching. Okay, I heard myself say. Okay, I'll go with you, but I need to pack some things first. Relief washed across his features, so profound it was almost startling. Of course. Take whatever time you need. I'll wait here. I retreated to my bedroom with my heart hammering, wondering if I'd just made the best or worst decision of my life. I threw clothes into a duffel bag with shaking hands. Jeans, sweaters, my laptop, chargers, toiletries. I grabbed my phone charger and my parents' photo album from my nightstand, needing something familiar in whatever strange place I was going. When I emerged 15 minutes later, Donato was standing exactly where I'd left him, as if he'd been afraid that moving would spook me. He took my bag without asking, and his fingers brushed mine in the exchange. The contact was brief but electric, and from the way his eyes widened slightly, he felt it too. Ready? He asked. No, but let's go anyway. He smiled, a genuine smile this time, warm and approving. Brave, I like that. We left my apartment, Donato keeping himself between me and the stairwell as we descended. Outside, the snow had intensified, turning the street into something from a Christmas card. But the black sedan was still there, precisely as Donato had described, and I felt eyes on me as we walked to a dark SUV parked at the curb. A man I hadn't noticed before appeared from the shadows, broad-shouldered, with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow. He opened the SUV's back door without speaking. This is Marco, Donato said. Head of my security. He'll be driving us. I slid into the back seat, and Donato followed, positioning himself between me and the window. As Marco pulled into traffic, I caught one last glimpse of my building, and the black sedan pulling away from the curb to follow us. "They're following us," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I know. They'll lose interest once they realize where we're going. No one's stupid enough to follow me to my home." Donato's hand found mine in the darkness, squeezing gently. "You're safe now, Nadia. I promise." His hand was warm, his grip reassuring, and against all logic, I believed him. I was in a car with a man I'd met 20 minutes ago, being driven to an unknown location, running from danger I couldn't see. It was insane. It was reckless. It was the most alive I'd felt in 5 years. "Merry Christmas," I whispered, not sure if I meant it as a joke or a prayer. Donato squeezed my hand again, his thumb tracing circles across my knuckles. "Merry Christmas, Nadia. Welcome to my world." The drive took 40 minutes, carrying us out of my familiar Brooklyn neighborhood and into areas I'd only seen in magazine spreads about New York's wealthy elite. The buildings grew taller, the streets cleaner, the cars more expensive. Finally, Marco pulled up to a high-rise with a doorman and the kind of security that probably included DNA scanners. "You live here?" I asked, craning my neck to see the top floors. Top 3 floors, actually. "The building is owned by one of my companies. I like having control over who comes and goes." Donato helped me out of the SUV, his hand steady on my elbow. "Come on, let's get you somewhere warm." The lobby was all marble and modern art, and the doorman greeted Donato with respectful nods. We took a private elevator that required a keycard to operate, and soft jazz played as we ascended. I watched the floor numbers climb, 30, 40, 50, until we finally stopped at 52. The doors opened directly into Donato's apartment. I stepped out and stopped, speechless. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased Manhattan glittering in the distance, snow falling past the glass, as if we were inside a snow globe. The space was massive, open concept, with a living area that could fit my entire apartment 3 times over. But despite its size, it felt warm. There were books on shelves, art that looked as if it had actually loved rather than just expensive, and little details that suggested someone really lived here rather than just occupying space. I couldn't find words. "This is incredible. Thank you. I had it renovated a few years ago, to actually feel like a home instead of a showroom." He set down my bag and shrugged out of his coat. Underneath, he wore a dark sweater that showed off shoulders that could probably break down doors. "Can I get you something? Coffee, tea, something stronger?" "Tea would be good. I feel like I'm still processing all of this." "Understandable. You've had quite a night." He moved toward an open kitchen that had appliances I'd only seen on cooking shows. "Go ahead and look around. Get comfortable. This is your home for as long as you need it." I wandered through the space, drawn to the windows and their impossible view. The city stretched before me like a circuit board, all light and geometry. From up here, the danger Donato had described felt distant, almost unreal, but my reflection in the glass showed me the truth. I was shaking, adrenaline finally catching up with shock. "Here." Donato appeared at my elbow with a mug of tea, steam rising in delicate curls. "Chamomile, good for nerves." I gratefully accepted it, wrapping both hands around the warmth. "I still don't understand why you're doing this. You could have just warned me, or had someone watch my building. You didn't have to bring me here." "No, I didn't have to. I chose to." He leaned against the window frame, studying me with that same intense focus from before. "Can I tell you something? I feel like you're going to regardless." That earned a soft laugh. "Fair. Here's the truth. I've been alone on Christmas for the past 8 years. My parents are dead. My siblings scattered. My work, it doesn't leave room for much else. I stopped celebrating years ago, because it seemed pointless to mark joy I didn't feel." He took a breath. "And then Mrs. Calabresi called me tonight, worried about her neighbor, who she thinks is too young to be as lonely as she is. She described you kind but closed off, wounded but still fighting. And I thought, maybe keeping you safe could mean neither of us has to spend Christmas alone." The vulnerability in his admission made my chest ache. "So this isn't just about protection. The protection is real. The danger is real. But no, it's not just about that." He met my eyes directly. "I'm a selfish man, Nadia. I saw an opportunity to do something good, while also giving myself a reason to feel human for a few days. If that makes me an opportunist, so be it. I should have been offended, should have felt used. Instead, I just felt understood. in a way I hadn't in years. I get it. I've been alone by choice for so long that it stopped feeling like a choice. It just became who I am. Who you've been, he corrected gently. Not who you have to be. We stood there in the window's reflection, two lonely people finding unexpected companionship in the strangest circumstances. Outside, snow continued to fall, and somewhere in the city, men with bad intentions plotted violence. But in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in 5 years. Safe. Not just physically, but emotionally, like I'd found someone who understood the particular shade of loneliness I carried. Your room is this way, Donato said after a moment, gesturing down a hallway. Private bathroom, your own space. I'm 3 doors down if you need anything. And Nadia? He waited until I looked at him. Thank you for trusting me. I know it wasn't easy. Thank you for caring, even if it is selfish. I smiled, surprising myself. Merry Christmas, Donato. Merry Christmas. He said it as he meant it this time, like maybe the holiday wasn't completely meaningless after all. My room was beautiful, decorated in soft grays and creams, with a bed that looked like a cloud and windows showcasing that impossible view. I set down my tea and collapsed onto the mattress, my mind spinning with everything that had happened. 4 hours ago, I'd been alone in my apartment, resigned to another isolated Christmas. Now, I was in a penthouse with a mafia boss who'd somehow made me feel safer than I'd felt in years. It was insane. It was impossible. And lying there in the darkness with the city glowing beyond my windows, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. I woke to winter sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows, and the scent of coffee drifting from somewhere deeper in the apartment. For a moment, I couldn't place where I was. The bed was too comfortable, the sheets too soft, the silence too complete. Then memory flooded back. Donato, the threat, the midnight drive through snow to this penthouse refuge. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand and saw it was nearly 10 a.m., later than I'd slept in years. There were messages from my brother in Singapore wishing me Merry Christmas, and a missed call from Mrs. Calabrese. I made a mental note to call her back, then pulled on jeans and a sweater before venturing out. The living room was empty, but voices drifted from the kitchen. I followed them to find Donato at the stove, cooking something that smelled incredible, while Marco sat at the counter reading a newspaper. They both looked up when I entered. Good morning, Donato said, smiling. He looked different in daylight, less intimidating, more human. He wore dark jeans and a simple black t-shirt that showed off arms I definitely shouldn't have been noticing. Coffee? Please, and that smells amazing. Italian sausage frittata, my mother's recipe. He poured me coffee in a mug that probably cost more than my monthly utilities. Merry Christmas. How did you sleep? Better than I have in months, honestly. I accepted the coffee gratefully. Your bed is like sleeping on a cloud. Good. You needed the rest. He returned to the stove, and I watched him cook with the easy competence of someone who genuinely enjoyed it. Marco and I were just discussing the situation with Kozlov. There have been developments overnight. My stomach clenched. What kind of developments? Marco folded his newspaper. Kozlov's men tried to enter your building at 3 a.m. Our people intercepted them. There was a confrontation. Is anyone hurt? Not our people. 2 of Kozlov's men are in the hospital with injuries they'll have trouble explaining. Marco's expression was neutral, but something in his voice suggested he'd been personally involved in those injuries. Message was sent, but it means Kozlov knows we're protecting you specifically, which makes things more complicated, Donato added, plating food with professional precision. He'll see you as valuable now, either as leverage or as a way to provoke me, so we'll need to be extra careful. He set a plate in front of me, and despite my anxiety, my mouth watered. The frittata was perfect, fluffy eggs studded with sausage and vegetables, topped with cheese that melted in my mouth. I'd been living on frozen dinners for so long that real food felt almost decadent. This is incredible, I said around a bite. Cooking is meditation for me. When everything else is chaos, the kitchen makes sense. He poured himself more coffee. So here's what I'm thinking. You stay here for the next few days while we handle Kozlov. You'll be safe wherever you go, but mostly I'd prefer you stay where I know you're safe. After New Year's, this should be resolved one way or another. What does resolved mean in your world? It means Kozlov either backs off or... Donato paused, weighing his words. Or he becomes someone else's problem. Permanently. The casual way he discussed violence should have terrified me. Instead, I just felt grimly grateful that his capacity for violence was currently pointed away from me. And you're sure I'll be safe here? This building has better security than most government facilities. Bulletproof windows, reinforced walls, panic rooms on every floor. Plus, Marco and 6 other men are on rotation specifically to protect you. He met my eyes across the counter. I'm not letting anything happen to you, Nadia. That's a promise. I believed him. Maybe I was naive. Perhaps I was just desperate for someone to care. But I believed him completely. Okay, then I'll stay. But I need to work. I have deadlines and video calls. I can't just disappear from my life completely. Of course. Set up wherever you're comfortable. The Wi-Fi password is on the fridge, and if you need anything for work, ask. He checked his phone and frowned. I have some business to handle this afternoon. Marco will be here if you need anything. But I'll be back for dinner. You don't have to rearrange your schedule for me. I'm not. I always have dinner at home on Christmas. This year I have company. He smiled, and his face transformed from dangerous to devastating. Besides, I'd like to know more about the woman I'm protecting. Consider it compensation for my hospitality. I'm not that interesting. I doubt that very much. He stood, grabbing his phone and a jacket from the back of his chair. Make yourself at home, Nadia. Really. Everything here is yours to use. After he left, the penthouse felt simultaneously too big and too intimate. I set up my laptop at the dining table and tried to focus on work, but my mind kept drifting to Donato, the way he moved, the surprising gentleness in his hands when he cooked, the raw honesty when he'd admitted to being lonely. He was nothing like what I'd expected from a mafia boss. He was complicated, careful, and carrying wounds I recognized because they looked a lot like my own. I worked through lunch, losing myself in spreadsheets and analysis reports. Marco checked on me periodically, bringing fresh coffee without being asked, and his quiet presence was oddly comforting. By the time my video call with my Singapore-based team ended, it was nearly 5 p.m., and the winter sun was already setting, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. That was your brother, Marco said from the kitchen. It wasn't a question. I spun around, startled. How did you... You smiled differently when you talked to family. Softer. He was preparing something at the counter, vegetables from the looks of it. Donato asked me to start dinner. He's running late, but should be here soon. You cook too? Everyone in Donato's inner circle has multiple skills. Keeps us valuable. He said it matter-of-factly, as if being a bodyguard/chef were utterly normal. You should call your grandmother back, Mrs. Calabresi. She's been worried. So I called her, settling into the couch with my phone. Mrs. Calabresi answered on the second ring, her warm voice immediately soothing. Nadia, oh thank goodness, I've been so worried about you. I'm fine, Mrs. Calabresi. I'm actually staying with Donato Testa for a few days. He said you asked him to check on me? I did. I know you don't like to talk about it, dear, but I've been watching you grow sadder and lonelier over the past few years. When Donato mentioned some trouble in the neighborhood, I thought maybe you both needed someone. He's a good man, whatever you might have heard. He's been very kind, I admitted, though I'm still processing the fact that he's a man trying to be better than his circumstances? Mrs. Calabresi interrupted gently. Yes, he is. His father was cruel, but Donato is different. He protects people, takes care of the neighborhood. I trust him with my life, Nadia. You can trust him with yours. We talked for another 20 minutes, her grandmotherly concern washing over me like a balm. By the time we hung up, I felt steadier, more grounded. Mrs. Calabrese was right. I'd been getting sadder, letting my isolation calcify into something permanent. Maybe this bizarre situation was an opportunity to break that pattern. The front door opened, and Donato entered, carrying shopping bags and looking tired. "Sorry, I'm late. Everything took longer than expected." "Everything okay?" I asked. "As okay as it gets." He set down the bags and shrugged out of his jacket. Snow dusted his shoulders, melting into dark spots. "But I come bearing gifts. I realized this morning that you probably didn't bring anything for Christmas, so..." He gestured to the bags. I took the liberty. I crossed to investigate and found beautifully wrapped packages, a new book by an author I loved, fancy tea in flavors I'd never tried, and a soft cashmere sweater in deep blue. The thoughtfulness of it made my throat tight. "You didn't have to do this." I wanted to. Christmas should involve presents, even under bizarre circumstances. He moved to stand beside me, close enough that I could smell his cologne, cedar and something warmer. "There's one more thing." He pulled a small box from his pocket and held it out. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a small snowflake-shaped pendant. "Donato, this is too much." "It's not. It's barely anything. But I saw it, and I thought of you, and..." He stopped, something vulnerable crossing his face. "I wanted you to have something beautiful, to remember that even strange Christmases can have good moments." I didn't think. I just reached up and kissed his cheek, feeling his sharp intake of breath. "Thank you for all of this, for making me feel less alone." His hand came up to cup my face, thumb brushing across my cheekbone with aching gentleness. "You make me feel less alone too, Nadia. That's worth more than jewelry." We stood there in the gathering darkness, the city lights beginning to glow beyond the windows. This was dangerous, getting attached to a man whose world was built on violence, letting myself feel things for someone I'd known less than 24 hours. But his eyes held mine with such open want, such careful hope, that I couldn't bring myself to step away. "Dinner's ready," Marco called from the kitchen, breaking the spell. Donato's hand dropped, but his eyes stayed on mine. "We should eat, and then maybe you can tell me your story, if you want." "What makes you think I have a story?" "Everyone has a story, especially people who choose loneliness as carefully as you have." He gestured toward the dining table. "Come on, let's share ours over good food and decent wine. It's Christmas after all." Dinner was lamb and roasted vegetables prepared with the same care Donato had shown that morning. Marco joined us briefly before excusing himself to check the security feeds, leaving Donato and me alone with flickering candles and the nighttime city as our backdrop. "So," Donato said, pouring wine, "tell me about Nadia Volkov, who you were before you decided to disappear." I took a steadying breath. "My parents died 5 years ago. Car accident. My brother had just moved overseas for work, and suddenly I was completely alone for the first time in my life. I didn't handle it well. Grief isn't something you handle well. You survive it. I survived it by cutting everyone else out. My friends tried at first, but I kept declining invitations and canceling plans until they stopped trying. Then my boyfriend left because he said loving me was like loving a ghost. He wasn't wrong." I took a long sip of wine, and I just stayed alone. It felt safer than risking more loss. Donato nodded slowly. "I understand that. When my father died, I inherited everything. His business, his responsibilities, his enemies. It didn't leave room for personal connections. Anyone I let close became a liability, a weakness someone could exploit. So I stopped letting people close." "Do you regret it?" "Every day. But regret doesn't change the circumstances." He refilled our glasses. "Though recently I've been wondering if safety is worth the cost of perpetual loneliness." "And what conclusion did you reach?" "That maybe the right person makes the risk worthwhile." His eyes met mine with unmistakable intent. "Maybe some connections are worth protecting instead of avoiding." My heart hammered. Donato. I know. Too fast, too intense, completely inappropriate given the situation. He set down his wineglass. But I'm tired of pretending, Nadia. You walked into my life less than a day ago, and somehow you've made me feel more human than I've felt in years. That's nothing. That's worth acknowledging. I feel it too, I admitted quietly. And it terrifies me. I don't know how to trust this, how to trust you, how to trust myself not to ruin it by running away when things get difficult. Then don't run. Stay. See what happens when two lonely people stop choosing safety over connection. He reached across the table and took my hand. I can't promise easy, Nadia. My world is complicated and dangerous. But I can promise honestly. I can promise that whatever this is between us, I'll protect it as fiercely as I protect you. I looked at our joined hands, his large and scarred, mine small and trembling. Everything logical said this was a terrible idea. But sitting there with Donato, with the city glowing beyond the windows, and his dark eyes full of careful hope, I couldn't remember why safety had ever seemed more important than this. Okay, I whispered. I'll stay. Not just because of the danger, but because I want to see where this goes. His smile was blinding. Thank God. I was prepared to make a much more elaborate argument. We finished dinner, talking about more minor things, books we loved, movies that made us cry, the small details that build intimacy. Donato told me about learning to cook from his mother, about the vineyard in Italy his family owned, about his dream of someday having a life that didn't revolve around territory and violence. I told him about my data analysis work, about the spreadsheets that made sense when people didn't, about my secret love of terrible reality television. And slowly the walls we'd both built started crumbling. It was near midnight when Donato walked me to my room. We stood in the doorway, neither wanting to say goodnight, both aware that crossing certain thresholds would change everything. Thank you for today, I said. For the gifts, for dinner, for being honest about what you want. Thank you for giving me a reason to celebrate Christmas again. He reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, his fingers lingering against my skin. Sleep well, Nadia. I'll see you in the morning. Good night, Donato. He turned to leave, then stopped. If you have nightmares or can't sleep, or just don't want to be alone, my door is open. Literally, I never lock it. In case you need to know that. Then he was gone, leaving me standing in my doorway, my heart racing, and the knowledge that I was falling for a man who could either save me or destroy me. Possibly both. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about open doors and impossible choices. Somewhere in the building, men with guns kept watch to protect me from external threats. But who would protect me from the far more dangerous threat of falling in love? The answer, I realized as sleep finally claimed me, was no one. I was on my own with this. And for the first time in 5 years, that didn't feel like safety. It felt like the terrifying, exhilarating start of something real. The next few days settled into a rhythm that felt dangerously domestic. Donato would leave in the mornings to handle business he didn't detail, and I would work from the penthouse, trading emails and video calls from his dining table. Marco maintained his quiet presence, and 2 other security men, Luca and Antonio, rotated through shifts. They treated me with careful respect, and I got the sense that Donato had made very clear what would happen if they didn't. Evenings were for Donato and me. We'd cook together, he teaching me Italian recipes while I introduced him to the questionable joy of takeout sushi. We'd watch movies curled on opposite ends of his massive couch, the distance between us shrinking each night incrementally. We'd talk until late, sharing histories and fears and the small vulnerabilities that build bridges between isolated souls. And through it all, the attraction built. A slow-burning heat that neither of us acknowledged directly, but both felt constantly. His hand would brush mine, as he reached for the salt. I'd catch him watching me with dark, hungry eyes when he thought I wasn't looking. The air between us stayed charged, electric, promising explosions if we ever stopped being careful. On the third night, I couldn't sleep. My mind churned with work stress and fear about what happened when this temporary safety ended. I lay in bed watching snow fall past my windows, then remembered Donato's words. My door is open. I padded down the hall in pajama pants and an oversized t-shirt, my heart hammering. His door was indeed open, and soft light spilled into the hallway. I knocked gently. "Come in." His voice was rough, like he hadn't been sleeping either. I found him in bed, shirtless, reading a book by the light of a bedside lamp. He looked up when I entered, and something heated flickered in his expression before he controlled it. "Can't sleep?" he asked. My brain won't shut off. I keep thinking about going home, about what happens when this is over, about... I stopped, not ready to voice the deepest fear, that I was getting too attached, too fast, to someone whose life could never truly overlap with mine. He set aside his book and pulled back the covers in silent invitation. "Come here." I should have said no. Should have maintained boundaries. Instead, I climbed into his bed, and he pulled me against his chest, his arms wrapping around me with careful strength. "Better?" he murmured into my hair. "Yeah, better." I let myself relax into his warmth, feeling his heartbeat steady against my back. "Is this okay, us doing this?" "Nadia, if you think there's any universe where I'd object to holding you, you're not paying attention." His arms tightened fractionally. "But I won't push for more than this. Not unless you want it. Not unless you're sure." "I'm sure I want you," I admitted. "I'm just not sure I know how to want someone without sabotaging it." "Then we'll figure it out together. No sabotage required." He pressed a kiss to my temple. "Sleep, Nadia. I've got you." So I slept in Donato Testa's arms, safer than I'd felt in 5 years, and dreamed of possibilities I'd given up believing in. I woke to winter sunlight, and Donato's sleeping face inches from mine. His expression in sleep was younger, more vulnerable. The hard edges of control softened into something almost boyish. I watched him breathe, counted the faint scars on his skin. Stories I didn't know yet but wanted to learn, and felt my heart crack open with terrifying certainty. I was falling in love with him. His eyes opened and he smiled, sleepy and warm and completely unguarded. "Morning." "Morning. Sorry for invading your bed." "Never apologize for that. Invade any time." He reached up and traced my cheekbone with gentle fingers. "How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in years." "Good. Then mission accomplished." He started to pull away, but I caught his hand, keeping him close. "Donato, what is this? Us? What are we doing?" His expression grew serious. "I don't know what to call it, but I know I think about you constantly. I know I want to keep you safe, close, and in my life. However, you'll let me. I know that every hour I spend with you feels more real than years of existing before you showed up." He took a shaky breath. "I'm falling for you, Nadia. Hard and fast and probably foolishly. But I can't seem to stop myself." "I'm falling for you too," I whispered, "and it terrifies me." "Me too. But maybe being terrified together is better than being safe alone." He kissed my forehead softly. "Stay with me after this is over. Not because of danger or protection, but because you want to. Give us a chance to see if this could be something real." Before I could answer, his phone rang, harsh and insistent. He swore softly and grabbed it from the nightstand, his expression darkening as he read the screen. "I have to take this." He answered with a curt, "What?" Then listened, his body going tense. "When? How many?" More listening. "Get everyone in position. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He ended the call and turned to me, his expression grim. "Kozlov made his move. There's been an attack on one of my warehouses. Multiple casualties." Ice flooded my veins. "Are you going there?" "I have to. But you're staying here with Marco and the others. This might be a diversion, a way to draw me out so they can get to you." He was already moving, pulling on clothes with efficient precision. Promise me you'll stay inside. Don't answer the door for anyone. Don't go near the windows. Just stay safe until I get back. Donato, be careful, please. He stopped at the door and crossed back to me, framing my face in both hands. I will be, because I have something worth coming back to now. Then he kissed me, deep and claiming and full of promises he might not get to keep. And then he was gone, leaving me alone with my fear and the terrible certainty that his world had finally caught up with our fragile peace. The following few hours were torture. I tried to work but couldn't focus. I tried to read but couldn't parse the words. I paced the penthouse like a caged animal, watched by Marco's careful eyes. News alerts pinged on my phone. A warehouse fire in Red Hook, multiple injuries, police investigating. But nothing about Donato specifically. Nothing to tell me if he was safe. By noon, I was climbing the walls. Marco had relocated me to an interior room without windows, the safe room Donato had mentioned, and his expression had gone from watchful to genuinely worried. Any word? I asked for the 100th time. Not yet, but no news is usually good news in our world. He rechecked his phone, frowned. Though radio silence this long is unusual. Marco, tell me the truth. How dangerous is this? He studied me for a long moment, clearly weighing honesty against reassurance. Very. Kozlov isn't playing games anymore. This is open war, and Donato is his primary target. The words confirmed my worst fears. We should do something. Go there. Help somehow. We should stay exactly where we are and follow Donato's orders. He'd never forgive me if something happened to you because I abandoned my post. Marco's expression softened. He cares about you, Nadia. More than he's cared about anyone in years. That makes you worth protecting. I care about him too, which is why sitting here doing nothing while he's in danger feels impossible. Marco's phone rang. He answered immediately, listened, then visibly relaxed. Understood. We'll be ready. He hung up and turned to me with something like relief. Donato's okay. He's on his way back, but we're moving you somewhere else. He no longer trusts this location. Kozlov has connections we didn't account for. Moving where? Somewhere even more secure. Donato will explain when he gets here. 20 minutes later, the elevator doors opened, and Donato strode in. He was disheveled, his shirt torn, blood on his knuckles, but whole and alive, and my heart nearly burst with relief. I ran to him without thinking, and he caught me, holding me tight. I'm okay, he murmured into my hair. I'm okay, Nadia. You're bleeding. Not my blood. He pulled back enough to look at me, his dark eyes intense. But we need to move. Now. Kozlov has people in this building. Doorkeepers, maintenance, people I thought I could trust. It's not safe here anymore. Where are we going? My family's estate in Westchester. It's a fortress. Actual walls, armed guards, the works. We'll be safe there while I finish this. He cupped my face. I know this isn't what you signed up for. If you want out, I'll arrange for you to disappear. New identity, new city, everything you need to start fresh and safe. Is that what you want? For me to disappear? God, no. But I want you alive more than I want you close. So the choice is yours, Nadia. Come with me deeper into my world or let me protect you from a distance. I thought about my apartment, my quiet life, the safety I'd built by letting no one in. I thought about the past few days with Donato, the laughter, fear, vulnerability, and heat. I thought about falling asleep in his arms and waking up to his smile and the way he looked at me like I was the answer to questions he'd been asking his whole life. I'm staying with you, I said firmly. Wherever you go, however dangerous it is. I'm not running, Donato, not anymore. His relief was palpable. Then let's go. We'll talk more when we're safe. We took a different elevator to an underground garage I hadn't known existed. 3 SUVs waited, engines running, armed men stationed at every entrance. Donato kept me close as we moved, his body positioned to shield me from threats I couldn't see. We drove for over an hour, leaving the city behind and entering the snow-covered countryside. The estate appeared gradually, first walls, then gates, then a sprawling house that looked like it had been transported from Italy. Guards waved us through multiple checkpoints, and I counted at least a dozen armed men patrolling the grounds. "This is your family home?" I asked as we pulled up to the main house. "For 3 generations. My grandfather built it when he immigrated, designed it to withstand sieges. Paranoid maybe, but effective." Donato helped me out of the SUV. "Come on, I'll show you around once we're inside." The house was beautiful, old-world craftsmanship mixed with modern security. Donato led me through marble hallways to a bedroom suite that was somehow both luxurious and comfortable. "This is your room. Mine is next door, connected through that door." He gestured. "I'm going to shower and change, then we need to talk. About Kozlov, about us, about what happens next." "Donato," I caught his hand. "I meant what I said. I'm not running. Whatever comes, we face it together." He pulled me close and kissed me, desperate and searching, like he needed to confirm I was really there, really staying. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. "I'm going to end this," he said roughly. "Kozlov, the threat, all of it. And then I'm going to spend however long you'll let me proving you made the right choice staying." "I already know I did." He kissed me again, softer this time, then forced himself to step back. "Shower, talk, and then we plan how to finish this war." While Donato was gone, I explored the suite and tried to calm my racing heart. Everything was happening so fast. The danger, the relocation, these impossible feelings for a man I'd known less than a week. But nothing about this situation followed normal timelines. When you met someone in the midst of chaos, when survival and emotion twined together, connections formed at supernatural speed. A knock on my door made me jump. "Come in." Marco entered, looking more relaxed now that we were behind the estate's defenses. "Donato wanted you to have this." He held out a phone, sleek, expensive, clearly new. "Secure line. Only his inner circle has the number. Use it to call anyone you need to reassure you're okay." "Thank you." I took the phone, then asked the question that had been nagging me. "Marco, be honest. What are Donato's chances of winning this war with Kozlov?" "Better than most. Donato is strategic, whereas Kozlov is impulsive. Patient where Kozlov is rash. But war is unpredictable, and Kozlov has resources we're still discovering." He met my eyes steadily. "But I've been with Donato for 10 years. I've never seen him as focused as he is now. Having something worth protecting makes him more dangerous, not less." "You mean me?" "I mean you. He's fighting for his life, yes. But more than that, he's fighting for a future with you in it. That changes everything." After Marco left, I called my brother to let him know I was safe. I texted Mrs. Calabresi. I sent a carefully worded email to my boss, explaining a family emergency that would keep me out of the office another week. Everyday tasks, building a bridge between this surreal situation and my regular life. Donato returned an hour later, showered and changed, looking more like himself. He settled on the couch near the window, and I joined him, curling into his side like it was the most natural thing in the world. "So," I said, "what's the plan?" "The plan is to make Kozlov an offer he can't refuse, territory he's been wanting in exchange for leaving my neighborhood alone. He accepts, and we all walk away alive. He refuses." Donato's jaw tightened. "Then this ends another way." "You mean you kill him?" "I mean, I do what's necessary to protect the people I'm responsible for, including you." He took my hand, threading our fingers together. "I know this isn't the life you wanted. I know getting involved with me means accepting violence and danger as constants. If that's too much, I understand." "Stop giving me outs," I said firmly. "I'm staying, Donato, through the scary parts and whatever comes after. You don't get to protect me from yourself." "I'm trying to be noble." "Be honest instead. Tell me what you want." He turned to face me fully, his dark eyes burning with intensity. I want you in my life. Not just during this crisis, but after. I want to wake up next to you, cook you breakfast, and introduce you to my world beyond the violence. I want to learn every detail of who you are and let you do the same with me. He stopped, seeming to struggle with words. I want to build something real with you, Nadia. Something that lasts. My heart felt too large for my chest. I want that too. All of it. Even though I'm a criminal? Even though people might always judge you for being with me? Even though I spent 5 years choosing safety over connection. It made me lonely and small. You make me feel alive again. That's worth the complications. He kissed me then, slow and deep and full of promise. When we finally pulled apart, his forehead rested against mine, both of us breathing hard. When this is over, he murmured, I'm taking you to Italy, the vineyard I told you about. We'll drink wine and eat too much food and pretend the rest of the world doesn't exist. That sounds perfect. It will be, I promise. We spent the rest of the day planning, Donato coordinating with his people and preparing for the meeting with Kozlov, which would determine everything. I stayed close, offering support where I could, slowly being introduced to the men and women who formed his inner circle. They treated me with respect, tinged with curiosity, clearly wondering about the woman who'd captured their boss's attention. That evening, Donato found me in the library, staring at family photos on the walls, his parents, his childhood, the history of the Testa family captured in fading images. That's my mother, he said softly, pointing to a woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile. She died when I was 16. Car accident, same as your parents. I'm sorry. Me too. She was the only one who thought I could be something other than what my father was grooming me to be. After she died, I stopped fighting it. Just accepted that violence and control were my inheritance. He turned to me. Until you. You make me think she might have been right. Maybe I can be more. You already are more, I said, turning to face him. You protect people. You honor your promises. You're trying to end this war rather than perpetuate it. That's nothing, Donato. I love you. He said it, with no dramatics, just truth. I know it's too soon and probably insane, but I love you, Nadia Volkov, and I needed you to know that before tomorrow. Tears burned my eyes. Why tomorrow? Because tomorrow I meet with Kozlov, and if things go wrong, I need to make sure I've said it, that you knew. He cupped my face in both hands. I love you, and whatever happens, that's real. We're real. I love you too, I whispered. And you're coming back tomorrow. You have to, because I'm not done with you yet. He kissed me, and this time neither of us held back. We stumbled toward the couch, hands exploring, breaking apart only to shed clothes that suddenly felt like barriers. His hands on my skin felt like coming home. And when he whispered my name like a prayer, I knew with absolute certainty that this was worth every risk. We made love slowly, tenderly, building something between us that felt permanent, despite all the reasons it shouldn't. And afterward, wrapped in his arms with the fire crackling nearby, I thought about how strange it was that danger had brought me here. To safety, to love, to feeling whole for the first time in years. Stay with me tonight, Donato murmured, already half asleep. Every night. Don't go back to that other room. Okay, I whispered, I'll stay. And I would. Through tomorrow's meeting and whatever came after. Through the fear and the violence and the slow work of building a life together. I'd stay because running had never made me happy, only safe. And safety without connection wasn't really living at all. The next morning arrived too quickly. Donato dressed in a suit that made him look every inch the powerful man he was, and I helped him with his tie, my hands trembling slightly. It's going to be fine, he assured me. Marco and 10 others will be there. We're meeting on neutral ground, in public. Kozlov would be stupid to start something there. And if he is stupid, then I'm prepared. He kissed my forehead. Stay here. Marco's Lieutenant Luca will be with you, and I'll be back before you know it." "I love you," I said, needing him to hear it again. "I love you too. And Nadia?" He smiled. "Start thinking about Italy. Where do you want to go? What do you want to see? Because when I get back, we're planning that trip." Then he was gone, and I was left with Luca and my anxiety, pacing the estate and checking my phone every 30 seconds for updates that didn't come. 2 hours passed, then 3. My imagination conjured increasingly terrible scenarios: ambush, betrayal, violence that left Donato bleeding in some anonymous location. I tried to work, to read, to distract myself, but nothing helped. Then Luca's phone rang. He answered, listened, and his expression went carefully neutral. "Understood. We'll be ready." He hung up and turned to me. "That was Marco. The meeting went badly. Kozlov refused the terms and threatened open war. They're on their way back, but they're being followed. We need to prepare for a possible siege." Terror flooded through me. "What does that mean?" "It means Kozlov might try to attack the estate. We're prepared. We've done this before, but it could get ugly." He gestured toward the interior of the house. "Come with me. There's a secure room in the basement. You'll be safer there." "I'm not hiding in a basement while Donato fights my battles." "With respect, this isn't about you. This is about Kozlov trying to take Donato's territory. You're just the most recent excuse." Luca's expression softened. "But you're also the reason Donato needs to survive this. So please, let us protect you. It'll help him fight better if he knows you're safe." The logic was sound, even if I hated it. I followed Luca to a reinforced room that looked like something from a spy movie. Thick walls, independent air supply, screens showing security feeds from around the estate. 6 other people were already there. Family members and staff, all looking nervous. And then we waited. Through the security feeds, I watched SUVs arrive, Donato's convoy moving fast. Behind them were 3 other vehicles I didn't recognize. They were indeed being followed. The vehicles screamed through the estate gates, and the gates slammed shut behind them. But not before 2 of the pursuing cars made it through as well. Armed men poured from both sides, and suddenly, the peaceful estate grounds erupted into chaos. I watched in horror as gunfire erupted. Donato's men took cover behind vehicles and walls, returning fire with professional precision. But Kozlov's men kept coming, wave after wave, more than anyone had anticipated. "This is bad," Luca muttered, watching the feeds. "They brought too many. This isn't a warning. This is a full assault." On the screens I saw Donato, taking cover, directing his men, a gun in his hand that he used with terrifying competence. He was in his element, commanding and lethal, and I'd never been more afraid for someone in my life. The battle lasted forever, but was only 15 minutes. Gradually, Kozlov's forces were pushed back, some retreating, others standing their ground. When silence finally fell, the estate grounds looked like a war zone. Luca got a call, spoke briefly, then turned to us. "It's over. Kozlov's men are dead or captured. We're secure." He looked at me specifically. "Donato's asking for you." I ran through the basement, up the stairs, out onto the grounds where smoke still hung in the cold air. I found Donato near the gates, talking with Marco, blood on his shirt, his own this time, from a graze along his ribs. "Donato!" I ran to him, and he turned, his expression transforming from exhausted to relieved when he saw me. "You're okay," he breathed, pulling me into his arms despite his injury. "Thank God. When I saw how many came through the gates, I thought—" He stopped, his arms tightening. "I thought I might not make it back to you." "You're hurt." "It's nothing, barely a scratch." But he let me inspect the wound, which was indeed shallow but still bleeding. "Come on, let's get inside. We need to talk." In the estate's medical room, while a doctor stitched Donato's side, Marco delivered the news. Kozlov wasn't with them. He sent his men, but he stayed back, which means he knows he's losing, but he's not giving up yet. Then we find him, Donato said through gritted teeth. Tonight, before he can regroup or plan another attack. This ends now. Donato, you're injured, I started. I'm fine. And I'm tired of living under threat. Tired of putting you in danger. He caught my hand. I'm ending this, Nadia. For us. So we can actually have the future we talked about. Let me come with you. Absolutely not. Then take me home. To my apartment. If you're hunting Kozlov tonight, I want to be somewhere familiar. Somewhere that feels like mine. I squeezed his hand. Please. I've been living in your world for days. I need a few hours in mine to remember who I am outside of all this. He studied me, clearly torn. If I take you home, you go with 4 guards. You don't leave the apartment, you keep your phone on, and at the first sign of anything wrong, you call me. Deal? Deal. 3 hours later, I was back in my apartment for the first time in almost a week. It looked exactly as I'd left it. Tiny tree on the coffee table, cold hot chocolate still in its mug, my life frozen in time while I'd been living someone else's. But it felt different now. Smaller. Less like a sanctuary, and more like a cage I'd built to protect myself from living. The 4 guards positioned themselves around my building. 2 in the hallway, 2 in the apartment itself, trying to be unobtrusive and failing. I appreciated their presence but needed space, so I retreated to my bedroom to call my brother and reassure him I was fine. We talked for an hour about nothing important. His work, his girlfriend, the weather in Singapore. Everyday sibling conversation that grounded me, reminded me that life existed beyond danger and mafia wars. When we hung up, I felt more like myself than I had in days. I was making tea in my kitchen when I heard a sound from the living room. A thump, like something heavy falling. I froze, listening. One of the guards should have called out to reassure me that everything was fine, but there was only silence. Heart hammering, I grabbed my phone and moved toward the doorway. The living room was dark. Someone had turned off the lights, and I could see shapes moving in the shadows. 3 figures. Too many to be my guards. I ran for my bedroom, slamming and locking the door. My fingers shook as I pulled up Donato's number, but before I could press call, the bedroom door exploded inward. A man I didn't recognize grabbed me, his hand covering my mouth before I could scream. "Quiet," he hissed in accented English. "You come with us. No trouble. Maybe you live." 2 other men secured my hands behind my back with zip ties that cut into my wrists. They dragged me out of my apartment, past the 2 guards who lay unconscious, or worse, in my hallway. I tried to fight, to make noise, but one of the men pressed something sharp against my ribs. "Quiet or I use this, understand?" I nodded, terror making me compliant. They pulled me down the back stairs and out into the alley behind my building. A van waited, its side door open. They shoved me inside, and I landed hard on the metal floor. The door slammed shut, plunging me into darkness. The van started moving, and I felt hands securing my ankles, then something rough being pulled over my head, a hood, blocking out what little light leaked through the van's windows. I tried to slow my breathing, to think clearly through the panic. Donato would know something was wrong when his guards didn't check in. He'd come for me. I just had to survive long enough for him to find me. The drive lasted 20 minutes, though terror distorted time. When the van finally stopped, and the door opened, rough hands dragged me out. I could hear water. We were near the docks, I thought, based on the smell and the sound of boats creaking against their moorings. "Inside," someone ordered, and I was pushed forward, stumbling over uneven ground. A door opened, then closed behind me. The hood was ripped off, and I blinked in sudden fluorescent light. I was in a warehouse. Empty, except for a few chairs and a table. And sitting at the table, looking pleased with himself, was a man I instinctively knew was Viktor Kozlov. He was older than I expected, maybe 60, with silver hair and the kind of face that might have been handsome before cruelty reshaped it. "Nadia Volkov," he said in heavily accented English. "I've heard much about you. The woman who tamed Donato Testa. Very impressive. He stood and circled me slowly. I'm told he loves you, that he'd do anything to keep you safe. Is this true? I said nothing, knowing anything I said could be used against Donato. Kozlov smiled. Silent. Also impressive. But it doesn't matter. I know it's true. I've been watching you both. The way he looks at you, the way he'd risk his own empire to protect you. This is weakness. And I exploit weakness. Donato will kill you for this, I said, finding my voice. You know that. This won't end the way you think. Perhaps. But first he'll try to save you. And that's when he'll be vulnerable. Kozlov pulled out his phone. I'm going to call him now. Going to tell him exactly where you are and exactly what he needs to do to get you back. And because he loves you, he'll do it. He'll walk into my trap alone, and I'll finally eliminate the last obstacle to controlling this entire city. He's not stupid enough to fall for that. Love makes everyone stupid, dear girl. You, of all people, should understand that. He pressed a number and lifted the phone to his ear. Let's find out just how stupid it makes Donato Testa. I watched helplessly as Kozlov delivered his ultimatum to whoever answered. Probably Marco. He gave an address, set terms, and threatened violence if they weren't followed exactly. When he hung up, he was smiling. 1 hour. He'll come alone or I'll kill you. And when he arrives, I kill you both. Simple, elegant, effective. He gestured to his men. Put her in the chair. Make sure she's secure. I want Testa to see her when he walks in. Want him distracted by the threat to her. It'll make killing him easier. They secured me to a metal chair with additional zip ties, positioning me facing the door. My wrists throbbed, and fear made my stomach churn. But underneath the terror, anger burned. I refused to be the damsel whose endangerment got Donato killed. If this was a trap, I needed to find a way to warn him, to disrupt Kozlov's plan. The warehouse had high windows I couldn't reach, one door I could see, and probably others I couldn't from my position. Kozlov's men numbered 6 that I'd counted, all armed. The odds were terrible, but Donato wouldn't come alone, no matter what Kozlov had demanded. He'd have a plan, backup, something. I just had to trust him and stay alive long enough for that plan to work. Time crawled past. Kozlov sat at his table, cleaning his gun with methodical precision. His men smoked and talked in Russian, occasionally glancing at me like I was a prize they'd won. I tested the zip ties surreptitiously, but they were tight, cutting into my skin when I pulled. Then I heard it, the distant sound of an engine. Kozlov stood, his men moving to positions around the warehouse. The trap was set, and Donato was walking right into it. The warehouse door opened, and my heart stopped. Donato stood there, alone, his hands raised to show he was unarmed. His eyes found mine immediately, and I saw relief and fury war across his features. Let her go, he said, his voice deadly calm. Your fight is with me, Kozlov. She's innocent. No one who loves you is innocent, Kozlov replied. She's complicit in your empire simply by choosing you, and now she'll watch you die before joining you. You won't kill me. Not yet. You need information. Accounts, contacts, territory details. That's why you wanted me alive. Donato took a step forward. So here's my offer. Let her walk out of here unharmed, and I'll tell you everything. Cooperate completely. Give you everything you need to take over my operation.
Donato, no! I tried to stand, but the chair was bolted to the floor. Don't do this!
Quiet, Nadia. He didn't look at me, his eyes locked on Kozlov. You already won. You destroyed my warehouse, killed my men, and captured the woman I love. I'm done fighting. Just let her go. Kozlov studied him suspiciously. Why should I trust this? Because I'm tired. Because I spent 10 years building an empire I never wanted, and I'm ready to walk away from it. Because loving her made me realize there are things more important than power. Donato's voice roughened. Please, let her go. I'll give you everything. I watched in horror as Kozlov considered. This was wrong. Donato would never surrender like this, which meant it was a performance, a distraction, part of some plan I couldn't see yet. I needed to play along, to help however I could. If you let me go, I said, making my voice shake. I'll convince him to cooperate. I'll make sure he tells you everything. Just please don't hurt him. Kozlov smiled, clearly enjoying our desperation. How touching, but I think the windows shattered. 6 of them simultaneously, and smoke canisters came through, filling the warehouse with thick gray fog. I heard shouts, gunfire, and chaos. Donato moved, faster than should have been possible, diving for me. He produced a knife from somewhere and cut through my zip ties in seconds. "Stay down," he ordered, pulling me behind a stack of crates. The warehouse erupted into a full firefight. Marco and what sounded like dozens of others poured through the doors and windows, and Kozlov's men returned fire. But the smoke gave Donato's people the advantage, and within minutes, the shooting stopped. When the smoke cleared, Kozlov's men were down. Marco stood over Kozlov himself, who was on his knees with a gun pressed to his head. Donato emerged from our hiding spot, pulling me with him. "It's over," Marco said. "What do you want us to do with him?" Donato looked at Kozlov with cold fury. He threatened an innocent woman, attacked my home, tried to kill people under my protection. He turned to me. "This is your choice, Nadia. He did this because of you. You decide what happens to him." The weight of that decision threatened to crush me. I looked at Kozlov, a man who'd kidnapped me, threatened to kill me, would have used me to destroy Donato without hesitation. Every instinct screamed for punishment, for revenge. But looking into his eyes, I saw what he'd become. Poisoned by power, by violence, by the endless cycle of retaliation. "Let him live," I said quietly. "But make sure he can never threaten anyone again. Turn him over to the authorities, to his enemies, to whoever can guarantee he's powerless. But don't become what he is by killing him." Donato studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "Marco, call our contacts at the FBI. Kozlov has outstanding warrants. That's the information they want. Let them have him." "Boss, he tried to kill you." "I know. But Nadia's right. We're better than this. Better than him." Donato pulled me against his side. "Get him out of here, and find whoever gave him information about our security. I want to know who betrayed us." As Marco dragged Kozlov away, Donato turned his full attention to me. His hands ran over my arms, checking for injuries, his expression a mixture of relief and residual fear. "Are you okay? Did they hurt you?" "I'm fine. Scared, but fine." I touched his face, needing to confirm he was real. "You came for me." "Of course I came for you. Did you really think I wouldn't?" He pulled me into a crushing embrace. "When Marco told me they'd taken you, I've never been so terrified in my life. If something had happened to you. But it didn't. We're both okay." I pulled back enough to look at him. "Is it really over? The war, the threat, all of it?" "It's over. Kozlov's lieutenants will scatter without him. Some will come to me seeking protection. Others will disappear. But the threat to you specifically, that's done." He brushed hair back from my face with gentle fingers. "You can go home, Nadia. Back to your apartment, your normal life. You're free." The words should have brought relief. Instead, they felt like a door closing. "What about us? That's up to you." His expression turned vulnerable. "I meant what I said. I want you in my life. But I'll understand if this past week has been too much. If you need distance, time to process, or just space to figure out what you want." I thought about my apartment, my small life, the safety I'd built by keeping everyone out. Then I thought about the past 6 days with Donato. The fear and danger, yes, but also the laughter, the connection, and the feeling alive for the first time in years. I thought about his hands cooking breakfast, his voice reading poetry, the way he looked at me like I was the answer to every question he'd been afraid to ask. "Take me to Italy," I said. "The vineyard you mentioned. Let's go somewhere we can be Nadia and Donato, without the danger, the empire, or any of it. And let's figure out what we are when nothing is threatening to tear us apart." Joy transformed his face. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure I love you. I'm sure I want to build something real with you. Everything else we can figure out as we go." I stood on tiptoes and kissed him. "So, yes. Please take me to Italy. Show me your world when it's just about wine and sunlight and us." "Tomorrow," he promised, pulling me close again. "We'll leave tomorrow, and Nadia?" His voice dropped to a raw, honest tone. "Thank you for taking a chance on me, for not running when you probably should have, for choosing us. Thank you for knocking on my door at midnight on Christmas, for making me feel less alone, for showing me that safety isn't the same as happiness." We stood there in the warehouse, surrounded by the aftermath of violence, holding each other like lifelines. It wasn't the romantic ending I'd dreamed of as a girl. No white horse, no perfect declaration, no promise that everything would be easy. But it was real. And after 5 years of choosing safety over substance, reality was precisely what I needed. "Let's go home," Donato murmured. "To the estate. We'll pack, make arrangements, and tomorrow we'll start our real first date. In Tuscany, with wine and pasta and absolutely no gunfights." "That sounds perfect." He kept his arm around me as we walked out of the warehouse and into the cold December night. The city glittered around us, indifferent to the small drama that had played out in its shadows. But I wasn't the same woman who'd spent Christmas alone in her apartment. That woman had been safe, but hollow. The woman walking beside Donato Testa was terrified and scarred, and more alive than she'd been in years. Sometimes the scariest choices are the right ones. Sometimes strangers become family in the span of a week. Sometimes danger forces you to confront what you actually want, rather than what you think you should wish for. And sometimes a knock on your door at midnight changes everything. 3 months later, I stood in a vineyard in Tuscany, watching the sun set over rolling hills. Donato wrapped his arms around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder. "Happy," he murmured, deliriously. And I was. We'd spent the past months traveling, Italy, France, Spain, letting the violence and fear fade into memory. We'd talked for hours about what we wanted our lives to look like. Donato was slowly transitioning out of his more dangerous operations, delegating to trusted people, building something more legitimate. And I was learning that my remote work could be done from anywhere, that I didn't need to hide in my apartment to feel safe. We'd bought a small house near the vineyard, our refuge, Donato called it. The place we'd come when his world got too intense, or when I needed reminding that safety and connection could coexist. "I love you," I said, turning in his arms. "I know I say it constantly, but I need you to know. I love you too, every day more than the last." He kissed me softly. "Thank you for saying yes that night, for trusting me when you had every reason not to. Thank you for knocking, for being stubborn enough to make me choose living over hiding." I kissed him back. Best Christmas gift I've ever received. A mobster with a heart of gold appearing on my doorstep. He laughed, the sound warm and free. Best gift I ever received. A brave woman who saw past the danger to the person underneath. We stood there as the sun painted the sky in shades of gold and rose. 2 lonely people who'd found each other in the most unlikely way and built something lasting from the ashes of our solitary lives. It wasn't perfect. We still had his world to navigate, my trauma to heal, and the constant work of building trust and intimacy. But it was real, and that made it worth everything. I'd spent 5 Christmases alone, building walls to protect myself from pain. Then Donato Testa knocked on my door at midnight and showed me that the only thing more painful than loss was never letting anyone close enough to lose. That safety without connection wasn't actually living. That sometimes the most dangerous choice, opening your heart despite every reason not to, was also the most necessary. And standing there in that Tuscan vineyard with the man I loved, I knew with absolute certainty that I'd make the same choice again. Every time. Forever. Because some knocks on your door change everything, and sometimes the person on the other side is exactly who you've been waiting for, even if you didn't know you were waiting at all.